Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be giving you my record predictions for each team in the NFC going division by division. Then at the end, I'll show you what the playoff seeding is going to look like for a future playoff predictions video. But before we get into this one, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Now let's talk about the NFC North. So how this is going to work, if you did not see my AFC record predictions, but basically you can see the win-loss from each game on the schedule in the middle, then the overall record in the top right, and then the biggest games in which I highlight 3 for each team at the bottom. First, let's talk about the Lions. I think the Lions have the easiest schedule in the NFL, the easiest based off of win percentages from last year. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL, and that is a fact. Now, they did get a new offensive coordinator hire, and that's Drew Petzing. Last year, their offensive coordinator was not good, so they fired him. Hopefully, that'll help out their offense. And if the offensive line is good, I think this is going to be an elite offense. We know that the receivers they have in St. Brown and Jamison Williams, tight end Sam Laporta, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff's a good quarterback. They have the weapons. If the offensive line is good, this is going to be an elite offense. And what they did in the draft is address that. They took Blake Miller in the first round. I gave this an A pick. This is one of the most solid picks in the NFL draft from this past season or this past draft. I think Blake Miller is going to come in. He was a consistent guy, consistently on the field in Clemson, and I think he's going to be that for the Lions. This team likely comes down to how well it can stay healthy. If the defense is good and it stays healthy, they just need the defense to be solid, and this will be a good team. Now, they did draft Derek Moore as well, so they improved the depth, but they did lose Alex Anzalone and 2 key defensive tackles, Roy Lopez and DJ Reader. Overall, I think the Lions are going to have a pretty good year. The easier schedule helps out a ton. If some players can step up, they're going to have a double-digit win season, potentially win that division. Some big games will be week 2 against the Bills. I have them losing that one on the road, first game in the Bills Stadium, but if they could win that, that would be huge. They play the Patriots in week 10 overseas. That'll be a big game. And then the Bears, who I think they will likely be trying to battle it out for the division with, they play in week 12 and week 17. Speaking of the Bears, let's talk about them next. I have the Bears going 11-6, another good year. They have lots of young talent that could improve. I really like the addition of bringing in Devin Bush to that defense. Dylan Thieneman, one of my favorite picks. I gave that an A+ at the safety position. They did, but the one question is, did they make enough moves on that defensive line? They did lose DJ Moore when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. I didn't mind the trade because they got a second-round pick, but they did lose him on the depth chart. But I think a guy like Luther Burden, I like him a lot. I think he's going to come in and step up and have a breakout season. Now, they do need to be better within the division. Last year, they lost both games against the Lions, and they split with the Packers and Vikings, so they need to improve within the division. But I think that this is a good team. There's always a couple teams that have a letdown after a big surprising year. Could that be the Bears? Yes, but I don't think so. I think the Bears have another good season, although they do have a tougher schedule. They play teams like the Eagles in week 3, obviously the Lions, and then the Bills in week 15. A tougher schedule than what they have been used to, but I think the Bears have enough talent on this roster to handle that well and still have a good season and get into the playoffs. Next, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. I have them going 9-8, a solid season here. Last year, they were pretty good. I think they were right around this area as well. I believe they actually tied a game, but the Packers were solid last year, and I think they're going to be once again. Something big that I noticed about this schedule is the last 4 of 5 are at home. That's huge. That gives them a big advantage in the cold at Lambeau. Their roster is, I think they're relying on guys to develop a little bit too much. They have a lot of young pieces and didn't really get too much better. I think they lost guys like Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, Romeo Doubs to the Patriots. They lost a decent amount of guys this offseason. And Micah Parsons, it seems like he's not going to be ready to start the year. He might miss a few games at the beginning of the schedule. We'll see how that pans out. We don't really know anything about that injury too much for sure, but I just don't love the receiver position when it comes to this offense and the Packers offense. I think they could be a good team. Like guys like Matthew Golden could develop. Christian Watson could stay healthy, but there's a lot of ifs with this team. We don't really know what's going on with Josh Jacobs in that situation. The big games will be against the Bears and Lions. If they can win some of those games, they can definitely make a push for this division. And then one at the end that I think could matter a lot would be the Texans in week 17. Next, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, another team that I have going 9-8. Last year, they won 9 games with bad quarterback play. So you would think, all right, this team's going to be really good, but we just don't know. We don't know how good Kyler Murray is going to be. He's been pretty inconsistent throughout his career, but he does have the weapons. So if he can be good, this offense is going to be good. They even brought in Jawan Jennings. Like, they have a lot of weapons on that offense. And the defense is likely going to be good once again. They kept Brian Flores, which was huge. Now, they did lose Jonathan Grenard, which could be big, but they drafted a lot of defense. Caleb Banks, who they took in the first round, was actually one of my least favorite picks in the first round, though. I gave this a D grade. I simply just didn't think his play on the field was consistent enough, and he's pretty injury-prone. So to be taking him in the top 20 was kind of wild to me, but I did like the next 2 picks, Jack Golday and Dominic Orange. I think the defense is going to be improved. The offense could be better. It all really just comes down to how well Kyler Murray is going to be, and that's why this is a very hard team to predict. The divisional games are going to be huge for this team, and a big one that I think could matter a lot would be the 49ers in Week 11. But here's a look at the final NFC North standings. I have the Lions winning the division, the Bears right behind them, and then the Packers and Vikings fighting at 9-8. This is going to be one of the best divisions in football. I have all 4 teams with a winning record once again. Next, let's talk about the NFC East. The first team I want to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles. They added Tariq Woolen in free agency this offseason. I think that was a very good pickup and a guy that's going to come in and start, and he kind of fits that Philly mentality. They also traded for Jonathan Grenard, so that's going to improve the pass rush a ton. They needed to get someone in there to do that after losing some players to free agency. So getting Jonathan Grenard was huge towards the end of the offseason, and I think the defense is just going to be good once again. Then when we look at the offense, they added Mekhi Lemon through the draft. That's an A-plus pick for me. Loved Mekhi Lemon. He's my wide receiver 1. They get him towards around 20, I believe. That was one of the best picks in this year's draft. I think the Eagles are going to be another good team, good again, once again. Now, they did lose A.J. Brown, so they will need Smith and Lemon to both step up and stay healthy. And simply, I think this season comes down to how well Jalen Hurts can play without A.J. Brown. Is he going to be still a good quarterback? Is bringing in a new offensive coordinator going to be good? That should help him out. But honestly, I don't love Jalen Hurts, and I don't love how he has performed, especially this past season. He was a very up and down. Overall, I have them going 10-7, though. Some big games against the Bears early. Some huge games will be against the Cowboys and Giants, 2 teams that are going to be right behind them in the divisional race, in my opinion. I have the Giants going 9-8. They brought in Harbaugh, and I really do love that hire. And I'm very excited for year 2, Jackson Dart. I really like Jackson Dart, and I think he's going to be a stud. It's a guy I'm targeting in a lot of my fantasy drafts. But I like the depth at the receiver position. They brought in Darnell Mooney, Juju Smith-Schuster, OBJ, a lot of older guys, but some solid depth. And then, of course, they have Malik Neighbors, who I think is going to have an amazing year this year. And then when you look at their draft class, I ranked it as the 5th overall draft class, one that I was very excited about. They got Arvell Reese and Francis Mauigoa. Both kind of just fell into their lap, some good value picks there. And then they drafted Colton Hood and J.C. Davis were some picks that I liked later on in the draft. They did trade away Dexter Lawrence and let Wan'Dale Robinson walk in free agency. That's 2 guys that I think they might miss. But overall, they added a decent amount, and I think it's an exciting team that's a younger team that's going to develop and is only getting better. So I have them going 9-8, pushing for that playoff spot. A decently tough schedule here, but nothing that they can't overcome. They play the Rams and Seahawks, 2 big games, 2 NFC West opponents, and the biggest games of their year will be against the Eagles. How well can they do against the former NFC East champions? Next, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. I have them going 9-8. I think the offense is going to be elite once again. I'm a little bit worried about the running back position, but overall, they're kind of running it back, and I'm excited to see what that offense can do. The defense should be a bit better. They drafted Caleb Downs, which I gave an A-plus grade to. I'm realizing how many A-plus grades I have from the NFC East, but Caleb Downs fell into their lap outside of the top 10, the best DB in the class. Can't believe that he fell that far. Great pick and great value there. The Malachi Lawrence pick I didn't love. I would have taken a guy like Keldrick Falk over him if they were going to go edge at that spot. I give that a C grade. They traded for Rashawn Gary as well. Just don't know if that's enough stud. power there. I don't know. It might take some time to be good. That defense, we'll see if it can come together this year. They do have a pretty tough schedule, in my opinion. I have them going 9-8, winning one more game than they did last year, fighting for the playoffs and a wild card spot once again. The Ravens in week 3, that'll be a tough game. Rams in week 15, that'll be a tough one. And the biggest ones will once again be against the Philadelphia Eagles. Next, let's talk about the Commanders. I think the Commanders are a very, very difficult team to predict because it all really relies on Jaden Daniels and his health. In college, he was very injury prone, and this past season, he was out for most of it. So it's going to come down to if he can stay healthy. I think this is an explosive offense when he is healthy. There's still some questions at the receiver position, but look out for a big year from rookie wide receiver Antonio Williams. I really like him out of Clemson. I think he fits that offense perfectly and could have a surprisingly really good year. I think the defense is improved. They signed guys like Odafe Owe and Amik Robertson, 2 solid defensive pieces. And then I love the draft pick of Sonny Styles. It's my favorite pick in the whole draft, an A+ grade once again. And I really like their draft class, although they didn't have too many picks. I ranked it 6th best draft class. And then one guy to look out for from that draft class, I would say, is rookie running back out of Penn State, Katron Allen. Him and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt will be a good running back duo. This is a younger team that is still getting better. I just don't think they're ready just yet. They kind of give me Bengals vibes, early Bengals vibes, just because of the quarterback injury situation. Hopefully they can stay healthy. And this is a look at the final standings. The Eagles 10-7, Giants and Cowboys 9-8, Commanders 8-9. A closely finished division here, one that's going to be an interesting division to see. I feel like it could go multiple different ways. I'm going to give it to the Eagles once again. We'll see how that pans out. But next, let's talk about the NFC West. First, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. I think if this team can stay healthy, it's going to have the best record in the NFL. The defense got a lot better. They traded for Trent McDuffie and brought in Myles Garrett through a trade as well. 2 stars that they added to the defense. Myles Garrett, the reigning defensive player of the year. Not much better that you can add to a defense. And then the offense was already elite. They're basically just running it back. I didn't really love the Ty Simpson pick in the draft. Like, in the first round, they could have got another receiving threat or just something else to help out Stafford. I would not have taken a quarterback when they're pushing for a Super Bowl. They've made moves all offseason like they're going all in, and then they drafted a quarterback that probably won't be ready for another 2 to 3 years. I didn't love Ty Simpson either as a prospect, and then it just didn't make sense with the timetable that the Rams are on. They do have a tough schedule here, some very tough teams throughout it. I'm not going to read them all, but some tough teams on the schedule, some tough teams in the division, but I just love this roster. I wanted to predict like 14 wins, but I just couldn't see myself doing it with how hard of a schedule that they do have. They do have some tough games against the 49ers and the Seahawks, 2 teams in their division that can give them problems potentially, and then they play the Chiefs in Week 13. That'll be a big one. I'm sure it's going to be a highly anticipated matchup. Next, let's talk about the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks, 10-7. You might be thinking that's a little low, but let me explain. I don't really think the offense got better, and if anything, I think it got worse because they lost their offensive coordinator and they lost the Super Bowl MVP star running back Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs. Now, they did draft Jadarian Price. I gave that like a B- grade. He plays a lot like Kenneth Walker, but he's not to that level just yet. And for a team that just won the Super Bowl, I feel like you would have tried to done all you could to get Kenneth Walker back, especially the performance he had in the Super Bowl. Jadarian Price is a solid player, though, don't get me wrong. Now, they did lose some pieces on the defense as well. Boye Mafe's gone, Kobe Bryant's gone, and Reek Woolen, all 3 guys that were contributors and starters as well. It's going to suck losing those guys, but I think it's still a lock under Mike Macdonald that they're going to have a good defense, and the defense is going to have to carry them because I think the offense might be a little bit worse. They still have JSN. They still have a lot of guys on that offense. They did bring back Rashid Shaheed. I think that was a smart move. But a tough schedule here, a tough division. I'm still going to say 10-7. Double-digit wins is good for any NFL team. And I think Seahawks fans might be a little bit let down at this prediction, but you would still be happy if your team got into the playoffs. Some big games will be Week 1 against the Patriots, Super Bowl rematch. Hopefully you can take care of business. I think they will. And then the divisional matchups against the 49ers and Rams will likely help decide this NFC West. Next, let's talk about the 49ers. The 49ers are going to be healthy going into the season, and this team is all about health. If they can stay healthy, we know what they can be under Kyle Shanahan and that coaching staff. But I think Brock Purdy is honestly pretty good when he's healthy. I feel like he gets a lot of hate, but I honestly think Brock Purdy fits this offense well. He does what he needs to do under a good coach like that with the talent that they have with Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and then bringing in Mike Evans. That offense could be very explosive. And I really, really think that the 49ers could be a good team if they're healthy. They're a team that's not getting talked about enough. The defense should be good when it's healthy. It's not going to be elite, but I think it's one of the better defenses in the league. Some tough games will be the Rams and Seahawks. They got to show out in those games to make the playoffs. And then in Week 17, a big one could be the Eagles that could decide some playoff seeding implications. Finally, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, I have them going 2-15, finishing with the worst record in the league. You got to predict some teams to have a really bad year, and this is my prediction. I think the Cardinals have a bad year. They have a very, very tough schedule. Like the beginning, the Chargers, Seahawks, 49ers, Giants, Lions, Rams, Broncos, Cowboys, Seahawks, Rams, Chiefs, Commanders, Eagles. I mean, the first 13 weeks before the bye week, all of those teams could make the playoffs. Those are all very, very good teams. It's a very tough schedule. I can't believe they got drawed this. But when you look at the offense, like it's solid. They brought in Tyler Algier and Jeremiah Love. I just can't believe how much they invested into that running back room. They have James Conner under contract. They're paying the most to the running back position by far in the NFL. I really just wish they would have invested into the offensive line. Don't get me wrong. I think Jeremiah Love was one of the best players in the draft, but we saw last year with Ashton Genty, you can't really do anything without an offensive line, and I think they could have just improved on that. They do have some pieces in the receiving game. Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't really lived up to the hype, but still a solid piece. Michael Wilson kind of came on towards it last year, and we know what Trey McBride is, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Now, the quarterback position is pretty shaky as well, like the offensive line. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he's solid, don't get me wrong. I have a feeling that by the end of this year, they start trying out Carson Beck, quarterback from Miami. And when you look at the defense, it does not have a lot of pieces, definitely relying on young players to take a step. Could happen. Don't know that it will, though. They're likely not going to be favored in many games this year, but I have them upsetting a couple of teams. I have them beating the Broncos and the Saints. The biggest games would be the divisional games. If they could win some of those, maybe they could make a push, but this is the one team or one of the few teams in the NFL that I don't really see having any chance at the playoffs this upcoming season. But this is a final look at the standings. The Rams finishing 13-4, likely the best record in the NFL. Seahawks and 49ers finishing 10-7. The Seahawks have the tiebreaker, and then the Cardinals going 2-15. A division with some top-heavy teams and one of the worst teams in the NFL. We'll see how it pans out, but one that I'm excited for, and I think some true Super Bowl contenders in this division. First, talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last year, an 8-9 team won this division, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen again this year. I think it's going to be the Bucs once again with an 8-9 record. I think this might be the worst division in football. That's just my prediction. The offense didn't really improve this offseason. They lost Mike Evans. They lost Rachaad White. Now, they did bring in Kenneth Gainwell. I think that's a solid free agency pickup. Could be one of the surprises on this team. And the defense did get a little bit better. They brought in Alex Anzalone. I like that. I ranked them the 7th best draft class. They drafted guys like Ruben Bain, who I gave an A-plus grade to. Can't believe he fell that far in the draft. One of the best edge rushers in this entire draft. They got him at 15. Keontae Scott was also one of my favorite players in the draft. Nickel/safety out of Alabama. Or not Alabama, Miami. Both those guys are from Miami. And honestly, they're getting hyped. The Buccaneers are getting hyped to be a double-digit win team, but they ended the last season very poorly. They lost 7 of the last 9 games, and I just think that they could end up ending the year slow again. They still make the playoffs in this situation, but I just don't love that roster. The offense is it just throws me off not having Mike Evans. I don't know what to think about the Buccaneers too much. Week 1 will be a big game for them against the Bengals. If they could win that one, maybe they start this season around differently and finish with a positive record. The Lions in Week 11 will be a big one, and then the Saints games. That's the one team that I think could fight and compete to win this division. They play them in Weeks 15 and 18. could come down to the last game. I could see it happening. Next, we have the Saints. I have them going 6-11. A very I shouldn't say solid season, but like they're going to be better. They're going to show some signs that they can improve and compete for the division in 2027. They did bring in Travis Etienne. I can't believe how much they're paying to the running back position with Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara on the books. I did like the draft pick of Jordan Tyson, B+ grade. If he's healthy, he's going to be great. Him and Tyler Shuck seem like they're already communicating, could be one of the better duos in the near future. Speaking of Tyler Shuck, they need him to continue to improve and stay healthy. He dealt with injury concerns while in college, and that's one of the things I'm concerned about with him. But if he stays healthy, he could improve, and this team could be a little bit better than 6 wins. The defense just isn't ready yet, and it's just not ready. I just think they have a lot of young pieces and simply just not playoff caliber just yet. It's a young and exciting team, but think them along with a couple teams in this division are simply just a year away. A big one will be week 1 against the Lions. If they could pull that upset off, it could change the way that their season turns out. They play the Bears in week 11, and then a big one will be the Bucs in week 15 and 18 if they want to win that division. Next, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. They have a lot of young stars on offense. Don't get me wrong. Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts is back. But the quarterback play is my worry. They brought in Tua. I don't love it. He's constantly injured. Hasn't even been great when he's been on the field. And then Michael Penix as well, another guy that's been injured and up and down play. He's had some good games, shown some flashes, but just not consistent enough quarterback play for me. The defense is pretty mid. If I had to give it a definition, like I like some of the secondary pieces, but outside of that, not too much. Just no major additions this offseason. A tough schedule here. Like some of the teams at the top, like the Steelers, the Packers, the Ravens, Bears, 49ers, Bengals, Lions, Chiefs, they have a tough schedule, one of the tougher ones in the NFL. I think going into the draft this upcoming year in 2027, they'll be looking for a quarterback. That's the main concern I have with Atlanta. Some big games, some upsets they could pull would be on the Ravens and the Chiefs. Finally, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. I had them going 4-13. Now, a lot of people are hyping them up. I'm not saying that, they're guaranteed to win 4 games, but I do think there's a strong possibility that they have an underwhelming season. They went 8-9 last year and just won the division. That was the only reason they got in, and they lost first round. A lot of people are hyping them up, saying that they were a lot better than they were. I simply just don't see it. The offense was very inconsistent, and they didn't really do anything to improve it. They drafted Monroe Freeling in the first round. Yes, I really like that pick. I really like Monroe Freeling, but their tackle position is already shored up. They're likely not even going to start him. I would have been happier if they added a weapon to that offense. The draft class was solid. They brought in a guy like Hunter. He could be a big run-stuffing defensive tackle with some pass rush upside. But the defense did add a few pieces, Devin Lloyd and Jalen Phillips. If the defense is improved, they could win them more football games than this. Don't get me wrong, that could happen. It's just the offense I'm so worried about, and I'm not completely sold on Bryce Young. Some big games will be against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then they could pull off upsets against the Bears and Seahawks. That would go a long way as well. This is a look at the final standings in this division. I'm just not high on this division. One of the worst in football last year, and I think it's going to be the worst in football this year. Likely going to come down to the Buccaneers or the Saints. If the Saints can stay healthy, I could see them sneaking up and winning this division. Should be. I have the Rams finishing as the 1 seed with the bye, going 13-4. Then I have the Lions going 12-5 with the 2nd seed. They would be playing the 49ers in this situation. The Eagles 10-7 playing the Seahawks. That would be an interesting game, Eagles and Seahawks. And then Buccaneers getting in because they win the division at 8-9, playing the Chicago Bears with an 11-6 record. And then the teams that just missed, the Packers, Giants, Vikings, and Cowboys, all going 9-8. The NFC is clearly the better conference to me, in my opinion. And I think a lot of teams deserve to be in. We'll see some pivotal games will be played within divisions and things like that will end up deciding the playoff seeding. But stick around for my playoff predictions video. That will be coming out in the near future. It will be AFC and NFC combined, and I'll end up with a Super Bowl champion. So until next time.